Good morning, guys. Yesterday, like last two classes, we have mostly dealt with about the API basics, and very important thing we have understood about uh, or like we have two components majorly. The client is someone who requests the information, and server is someone who supplies that information. These two guys interact over HTTP protocol. They are called as web services. If they are not communicating over a HTTP protocol, they are called as APIs. Very simple. And we also learn about what is cache, what is microservices, what are the use cases for microservices and all of the stuff. Yeah. And we also dealt with one of the important properties or characteristics of a REST API, right? That's your statelessness, right? We also learn about that in detail. Now it's time to learn about one of the client. Okay, that's Postman. So maybe we'll draw a simple diagram, right? So that again the same diagram. Okay, so we have someone called as uh, this is your client, this is your server. There are only very few components in case of database testing. There are not much of components. Okay, this guy needs some information, so he sends a request. This guy returns you back the response. Okay, so we send the request, we get the response. Okay, all we are going to deal about is only with this four particular components. Okay, either we're going to learn about clients, or we're going to see how we can construct the request, how we can going to get the response, how we going to parse the information, understand that information. Okay, all these things we are going to only deal about this fourth stuff. Okay, good. The first one we are going to learn about is a Postman client. Okay, so Postman is one of a client. Okay, using this client, you can basically construct a request and send it to some server. Okay, good. It's still confusing for me. Okay, let's go here and then search for Google. So what I have done, okay, I have used web browser here as a client. Okay, Google is a server here. Okay, I'm hitting the google.com and then I'm getting back the response. This client able to understand that information and displays the information in a HTML page, correct? So web page here, the Chrome browser is also one of the client. Okay, the Chrome browser can act as a client. Good. So what we are going to learn, we are going to learn about Postman. Okay, we already know how to use a Chrome browser to get this request and all the stuff. So we're going to learn about Postman. Good. Let's open Postman. I hope you all would have been uh, created an account in Postman, downloaded Postman and signed in, right? If you haven't done that, please reach out to me separately. If you face any issues, I'll help you out. We'll connect one-to-one and I'll help you out. Okay, good. So maybe you might not seeing this. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll also replicate the same screen what you see. So what I'm going to do, I'm creating a new workspace. Let's say Mintus demo workspace. It's like a new space where you can have stuff related to your API testing. Okay, in Eclipse we have a different Eclipse workspace, right? The same way, right? I'm creating a new workspace where I can add members, whoever I want to add into my project. I can add it, and then for now I'm not adding anyone, I'm just creating the workspace. This is the exact screen you might be seeing in your case as well. Maybe the theme would be different, you can change the theme. That's simple task, you can do that. But for now, if you notice, there are so many menus here. Okay, we're going to understand all of them in detail, but for now the first step, we're going to create a collection. Okay, let's open some notepad so that I can summarize some topics. Okay, collection is something that's like a group of requests. Okay, that's it. We're going to similar request. Okay, similar request, something like that. Okay, collection is like a folder, guys. Okay, you're going to collect all the similar requests into one folder so that it will be easy for you to manage. That's the only thing. Okay, it's like a folder. Suppose we create a folder in our in our machines. Why we create that? To keep something related to it, right? So the same way we create a collection to keep all the requests, similar requests, into that, so that it can be managed well. Okay, so collection, I'm going to create a new collection. You can give your name. Okay, let's say this is my make my trip collection. Okay, make my trip collection. Okay, something like this. We're going to deal about all these things later, but for now, just give the name. Okay, that's it. Now, if you notice, I don't have anything, so I can start adding a request. I can click on this to add a request, or you can click on this three dots, okay, and then click on add a request. Good. Yesterday, what we have done is basically, we have used make my trip, right? So make my trip for our example. So we'll use the same example so that we don't get confused. Make my trip, come on. Okay, just give it a little bit of time. Maybe in the meantime, we'll hit the same Google account. Okay, we'll try to see what is happening. Okay, so this is basically a get call. Okay, there are a lot of HTTP methods. Okay, but for now we're going to deal about only few HTTP methods. Okay, there are a lot of HTTP methods, but we are going to deal about get, post, get, post, put, delete. After that, we are also going to learn about patch, head, options. These are some of the methods that we are going to deal about. Okay, but all these four, okay, these four are predominantly the important operations. We call them as CRUD operations. Okay, CRUD means create, delete, update, sorry, read, and delete. Okay, you can mention them in the order. Okay, so create, read, update, and delete. Let's take an example. Maybe, okay, is my internet is down? Okay, is it a little slow today? Just a minute. Okay, anyways, let's take an example from Amazon.in. Oh, okay, sorry, my internet was a little bad today. Okay, no problem. So what I'm trying to explain is here we have four operations that are very important. That is get, post, put, and delete. Each of them are HTTP methods. Okay, they are all HTTP methods. Each perform this operation. Let's say, assume that in Amazon you place an order. Okay, what you are basically doing, you are creating a new thing into a database, right? So your post is something that is related to creating an entry in DB. Okay, so you are creating something, so we use post method for that. So suppose I want to just read all the orders that I placed. Okay, so I can go to some orders. Once you log in, you can go to that orders and see you can what are the orders you have placed so far, so that you're actually getting all the details about the order. So this like getting some information, get some information from server, okay, from DB or server, whatever. Okay, so get method is something that is used to get some information, right? Already existing information. Very simple method, but widely used method is get. Okay, then put. Okay, you have placed some order, but you want to change something. Okay, you want to change the delivery address. So what do? You go and modify those existing orders. Okay, that's called as put method. So this is your update, basically used to update an already existing thing in DB. Okay, and last one is delete. Okay, you have placed an order and now you realize that you have better offer in Flipkart, so you cancel this. So that's your delete operation. Okay, basically deletes an entry in DB. Okay, so these are the four operations that are very, very important. We'll come to this patch hidden options later, but for now just focus on only these four. Guys, if you have any doubts in the CRUD operations, please let me know. This is very important to understand. So get is something to get the information from DB. Post is something you create something into the DB. Put is something you update something already existing in the DB, and you are deleting something in the DB is your delete operation. So all these four are very important. We call it as CRUD operations. That is create something, read something, update something, and delete something. Okay. They may ask you in an interview what is CRUD operation, why are they so important? Because any website, I have given an example about Amazon.in. The same is applicable for Make My Trip as well. Okay. So even make my trip, if you book a flight ticket, it creates an entry. You want to see you want to fetch some information about, maybe you want to download your ticket. What do? You get some information from the make my trip. So that is get operation. What is suppose you want to change the travel date. What do? You update that, right? You want to delete your ticket, cancel your ticket. What it means, it's, or you want to delete it, right? So almost all the websites uses this 4 operations. Okay, so that's very important to understand. Now we have been using browser as the client so far. Let's try to hit the google.co.in from here. The reason of why I have chosen get is because I'm going to fetch some information from google.co.in. Google.co.in is our server here. Okay, I see some chat. And it depends, but mostly it basically removes that entry. Yeah. So here, see, we are going to simulate something. So in this case, the postman is the client. Okay, the server is going to be Google. We're going to hit the request. What is the request? Request is simple get request. I'm going to just load this google.co.in. Hit it. Okay, now we are getting the response back. But if you notice, see, whatever you see in the top column here, okay, I hope you can see here. Maybe I'll annotate with some drawings. Okay, so whatever you see in the top column here, okay, these are all request column. Okay, request components. Whatever you see below are our response. Okay, if you use post on already placed order instead of put, do we get any error? Yes, we will get an error. We are going to see about that in detail, guys. Don't worry about it. We are going to see about that in detail. Okay, because if they already, it's also based on the design. Okay, some people also use post to update that. Okay, but as per the recommendations from the standards, they told use a patch or put method to update. But in some cases, people may also use post. Okay, so it entirely depends on how the developers create their REST APIs. Okay, we're going to see about that in detail. Don't worry, guys. We're going to see about that in detail. Okay, so good. So this is the request components. Okay, what I'm doing, I'm just hitting the google.co.in. Here I'm getting the response back. If you also notice, there are few components that we need to understand. Okay, there is something called as response status code 200. Okay, which means whatever the request we sent is the response came back successfully. That's the only thing. So 200, anything the response code that is starting with 2 means it is a success. Okay, so 200 here indicates a response has been successfully received now to the client back. How long it took for the response to come back? It's almost 319 milliseconds. What is the size of the response? The size of the response is 17.55 KB. But if you want to save this response, you have an option also to do that. And now we also notice there are some columns here, that is body. What is the response body? So if you notice, this is basically your HTML. To be clear all drawings, I'll clear them. Good. Now if you notice, this is just HTML. Okay, this, if you notice, the option here is HTML, because Google is some server that returns a response in the form of HTML. Okay, good. So if you go here, Google responds the response in the form of HTML, but browser is capable enough to display it. But the Postman is not that good in displaying the HTML. Okay, so this is the HTML. But if you have seen this, there is a preview. You can see the HTML. Postman is trying to do its best to display the response in a HTML format here. But it basically returns in HTML. Postman is something that very good at displaying JSON or XMLs. Okay, but we are going to see about that. But for now, just understand, we send a request, we get the response back. There are some important columns. This is response status code. This is the response time. And also, if you can also hover your mouse over here, you can see what is the time it took for each operation. It's not that you hit the response, you directly get the response back. No, first it needs to initialize the socket for the communication. Okay, it took 8 milliseconds. Then it is looking for the DNS. DNS means it's a google.co.in. Okay, it needs to find the IP from your DNS. Okay, basically google.co.in is a server, right? They have converted that IP address into a DNS so that you can easily understand. So it, it needs to resolve the DNS, find the particular IP address, it needs to perform some handshake operations, and then it needs to send the request, then the response comes in, it needs to download that HTML content, it took 20 seconds, and then the total almost takes 345 milliseconds. Okay, so this is the entire operations, how, what is the time it took, and the size of the response is 17 KB. Okay, good. So this is very important to understand. And if you also notice, there is something called as cookies, which we going to learn about in detail. Don't worry about this cookies for now. I will explain all these components, but for now just be with me. We are going to learn about that in detail. But there is something called as headers. So headers are basically some metadata information that's getting transferred. Okay, headers are basically used to transfer metadata. Meta means important information, metadata informations. Okay, okay, most of the thing that is happening in the headers are very important information. Okay, so headers are basically used to transfer metadata information. Okay, we'll learn what is header now. Guys, if you notice, when we constructed the request, there are some columns here. Okay, some columns here, and we closely notice in headers we didn't added anything, but Postman itself added certain headers for us. Okay, what are these headers? Okay, these are auto generated headers. Okay, even from when you are hitting this request from Google, it will generate all those headers for you, some headers. Okay, this headers basically informs some information to the server. Okay, in this case, what is telling? Okay, maybe let's take an example of the user agent. Okay, the user agent informs the server who is hitting this request. It is Postman runtime. Okay, if you are doing this from a browser, then that user agent will be Chrome. Okay, if you are hitting it from Firefox, then that user agent information will be Firefox. So that uh, the basically the server can understand who is hitting that, and then based on that it can respond. It's just an added information. It's not like if you don't supply this information, it will not be working. Okay, it's not like that. But what is this accept? Okay, accept is a header that tells, hey, as a client, as a Postman client, I'm okay if you send me response in any format. So the response can be in any format, guys. Okay, the response basically can be HTML, JSON, XML. It can also be simple text. Yeah, so basically it can be of any of these formats. Okay, but most of the times we are going to deal about with JSON. Okay, so that's very important for us. Okay, so it can be of any format. So I need to tell, hey, as a server, you can respond me in any format. Okay, I can able to understand all these formats. Okay, so that's the reason we are telling */*. Otherwise you can mention application/JSON if you are only accepting JSON. If you mention accept as application JSON, that doesn't mean server will always have to return you JSON format. It's just my expectation. As a client, I'm expecting you to return JSON, but it is your wish. You can return in any format. And as a client, I'm also telling server, hey, when you are doing some kind of zipping, okay, see, when we are transferring information, right? So when you're transferring the information, it has to be, compressed so that it can be transferred in a very less time, right? Very simple processes. So as a client, what I'm saying, see, if you use any of these compression formats, I can be able to understand it very easily. So if you have a lot of compression formats, you can send me the details in any one of these compression formats so that I can decompress it and then understand the information. That's the only expectation from this header. Again, there is something called as connection header. What is this connection? Okay, connection is keep alive, which means when I first hit a request, okay, to this particular server, it does some operation, it creates some tunnel. Okay, in the backend, a lot of things are happening, guys. Okay, we don't know all these things, but still, okay, let's assume that it's creating some tunnel. Okay, this is your client, this is your client, this is your server. Okay, there is some communication, channel is getting, the established, right? So what we are telling, hey client, as a client, what I'm telling, hey, I'm first hitting you some request. Okay, we have established some tunnel for our communication. Don't close the tunnel. Okay, keep it alive. I have still more some operations to do. Okay, don't do it. Don't close the connection. Keep it alive. I may be needing your support in getting few more information. That's when keep this particular header comes in handy. But these are all auto generated headers, guys. You don't have to worry about all these things. This will be taken care by whatever the client. If you use browser as your client, you use SOAP UI, you use Postman, all these things will be taken care by them. But you need to understand what is the role of these headers. Okay, good. Now we have explained about the role of the headers in the request. The same way, response, while sending the response, the Google server also given some responses, headers. Okay, what are those? Hey, what is the time that this particular message is replying, when it is expiring? See, -1 is basically indicating it's not expiring. Okay, so and then what is the cache control? So we're going to deal about the cache and cookies later, but for now we can also understand there is something called as content type. Okay, while sending the request, okay, we told we are going to accept any content type. Okay, that is the accept thing. Here they are telling, hey, whatever the message that I'm going to supply is of text HTML format of this type of encoding. Okay, so that you can be ready. Okay, it is a HTML. You do some operation in order to display that information properly. Okay, and I'm encoding that I'm going to use is gzip. Okay, this is what I have expected. I am going to accept any of these three informations. Okay, these three compression formats. Okay, Google understood. Or some cases you can also reply in different compression format if they don't have that. But for now they have replied in gzip. Okay, that's the content encoding. Okay, compression format that they used. And if you notice, this is a server and all other information. But for now, just understand, headers are basically a place to transfer some important information between the client and server. When you speak about client headers, request headers, it's all about the information client want to tell to server. In the response header, it's all about the information that server wants to inform to the client. Okay, any doubts before we get started, before we move to next topic? Okay.
Yes, Amuthan. So I want to ask that, like, request is controlled by us. So let's say I want to give the accept encoding as .zip file. So can I do that?
Yeah, see, there are only a few accepted encoding formats. You cannot directly give .zip. Zip is not an transferable compression format here. Okay, in case of web services, these are all some existing encoding formats that are available. Maybe you can uh, Google about it. But .zip is not an basically an encoding format, acceptable encoding format. Okay, there is a list what you can use. It basically an algorithm to compress that information and then transfer it securely. That's the stuff about encoding. Okay.
Okay, okay, Amuthan. So my question was, like, the request we are sending, we have full control over it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Okay, any other doubts? Guys, it's not like any other online training course that you have attended in the past. Okay, I'm not restricting you to ask any doubts, because if you don't ask any doubts, maybe you understand everything or you don't understand anything. So please ask your doubts. Okay, it's maybe a silly doubt, but it might be necessary for you to learn new things. Okay, so please go ahead and ask doubts if you have. Okay, you can stop me anytime. Good. Now we have learned about headers, right? So okay, it's boring to learn about Google anymore. So we have learned about headers, we have learned about response code, response time, and response size. Okay, what is the size of the response? For now, this is enough for us. Let's take a different example. I am bored of basically using google.co.in. Let's take an example from Make My Trip. Okay, let's do a search. Okay, so all these requests are basically happening. Okay, even if I go back, okay, let's open the, if you want to see how this things are happening, how this API calls are being made. Let's say, see guys, this is the stuff that we have here. You can also see 200, 200, 200. This is a response code. Okay, what is this? This is a script. This is a document. Okay, when you want to fetch some document, when you want to get some GIF files. Okay, these are all getting fetched from the server, Make My Trip server. Okay, Now I'm going to hit on search button. Let's see what's happening. See guys, if you notice, search, this is a get call that is happening. Okay, go to the headers. Okay, if you notice, this is the request URL. Okay, this is the URL. What is the request method? Get. What is the status response code? 200. What is the remote address? Okay, what is the response address? Okay, maybe the request address is below. So this is the request address. Okay, this is the path. So they are telling, okay, I'm going to accept test HTML or XML or whatever the any of these types. I'm okay. I'm going to accept any of these encoding gzip, deflate, br. Okay, I'm going to accept the languages as English, US, and then some q equal to 0.9. I don't know what it is, but yeah, some information about your requests are all here. Okay, and now response, you can also see the response headers. Okay, you can see, okay, I'm going to give you the response in the form of HTML. We're going to the server that I'm using is Nginx server. Okay, it's a server, like we have Apache server, it's a Nginx server. Say it's setting some cookies, whatever the important information that client needs to know, this guy is sending it back. Okay, so you can also see the preview. This is the HTML that you can see, but in my browser it's JavaScript is not enabled, so you can't see it here, but you can see the preview in there. That's what we are seeing, that this is the HTML page we are seeing there. Okay, so you don't have to see it here. And then this is the response, more details about the response, the exact DOM, and what are the different calls that are made, what are the timings that it took. See, for the DNS lookup, it looks very less time. So the initial connection, it took almost 101 for 4 milliseconds. For SSL, 56 milliseconds. It's part of the initial collection itself. The request took almost 29 milliseconds, 0.29 must to be transferred. It waited for the response. So if you notice, it almost waited for 176 milliseconds for the Indigo, other flight providers to give the response back. And then it took almost 64 milliseconds to download all those contents, HTML, PNG images, all those stuff. And basically it took almost 353 milliseconds in order to provide a response for us. So that's more detail about, right? If you would have done a lot of testing, I know you are all testers, but have you ever done this? Have you ever gone to the network tab, see what is the time it took? How can we optimize this time? Okay, start doing this only when we know about backend testing, how things operates. Okay, now you can suggest in your application, maybe it took 3 seconds. Okay, then you can go and tell your developer or product owner, hey, I noticed that we are waiting for a lot of time to get the server. Can we do some optimization in the way how we connect to the server, how the response is coming back? Can we, if we optimize this particular time, then maybe we can reduce the time of the entire transaction itself. Okay, this sounds interesting. We will take this into consideration and we'll try to optimize this. Okay, so that's how you, only when you know more about backend testing, you can do all these things. So basically this browser is also doing that. Let's copy this particular piece of information. Okay, we are hitting this URL. Now we are copying it. Now I'm going to hit the same thing from this guy. Okay, now I'll hit on send. Okay, now let me hide this auto generator headers. I don't need the headers. Okay, so I'm getting the body again, 200 response. It took 460 milliseconds. Size of the response is big. Okay, 196 KB. Okay, so we are getting all this information. But again, HTML, I cannot be able to view it properly. So if you notice, Postman is trying to do it enough justice, but still it's not a good tool to preview your HTML files. It's basically for JSON and XML. So we'll learn about that, but for now, just be with me. So what I want to cover is basically that URL here. Okay, so guys, anyone can tell me what you can understand from this URL? Anyone can interpret what is this?
Yeah, so the initial HTTPS like tells us what kind of secured. Then
Yeah.
the URL is there, like make my trip, and then like this is the apart like from URL there are like flights and search are the sub part, like the sub pages, and
Okay.
like the next one is the header which we are putting it, like the flight details and everything.
Okay. Okay, can you understand? Can you try to do, what is this? Can you try to interpret this information and let me know what is that? Whatever you have told is correct. Okay, Okay, let's go to the parameters tab. But basically, these are all not headers. They are part of the URL
It's
itself, right?
query. Yeah, Muthan, it is query parameter, like whatever query we have done, like
Yeah,
from Delhi to MA, date, all the information, like whatever while doing the search,
yeah,
that has been passed over the URL.
yes. So this is a getter method. Okay, we need to tell Indigo, other people. So basically, this is a query that we have tried to search this query in the Make My Trip. Make My Trip internally understands that and construct the request and send it to different flight providers, get the response back, and then give the response back to us. I see someone in the chats, query string params. Yes, yes, exactly. So if you notice, we have searched from Delhi to Chennai. Ma is Chennai's code, IATA code. And then here, if you notice the time and trip type is O, which means one-way trip, it seems. And PAX type is something that is very, very tricky to understand, but I can easily understand here. Adult one, child one. I think, I don't know what, child is 0. I don't know what is this. So maybe some information they are sending. And
Infant.
international travel, yeah, infants is 0. Okay, good. And then there is something international trip. No, this is not an international trip. We are traveling within the country, so it is false. What is the cabin class? It is economy. What is the country code? C code is country code. It's India, and language is English. So basically, almost whatever the details that we have sent, okay, is constructed into the form of query parameters, and then it's been hit, constructed in the URL itself and then sent. Okay, let's also take another example. Maybe I will, same Google, will take a Google as well. If I search with automation, okay. If you guys notice, there is something called a search, that is your path parameter. I'll come back to that later. But for it, notice there is a question mark, and then there is something called as automation. So this is what we are searching, right? So now what will happen? It will go to the server, Google server, and search for this particular keyword. Okay. They also have some other key value pairs. These are all not easily understandable. Maybe we can understand this has the information about who is hitting this. Okay, if you notice, I have signed in with my Gmail ID. So it can understand based upon my previous searches, it can give me all this information. But if tomorrow someone is searching with this, the results what it displays may be changing, because Google understand what I have, it knows all the machine learning and artificial intelligence, and it gives me back information based upon the my search results and my previous search histories, right? So if you notice, sources from HP, some information it's having, but Google is very smart that I couldn't interpret what are all those information. Maybe let's try to interpret something from here. Okay, I could not guess any of these. All of these are encoded. Okay, so basically I couldn't understand any of these. Okay, maybe client is GWS this. I don't know what is this. So basically I couldn't interpret what this information, but I can basically understand that it's trying to fetch details based upon my previous search history. Maybe it is telling Google that what is the guy who is signed in here. Okay, good. So let's close this tab. Let's go back to the basics again. So now previously we used to call the entire stuff as a URL, but hereafter this is not a URL. This is URI. Okay, what is URI? What we are going to learn about that. So this information till here is your base URL that's not going to change. Okay, this one here is your path parameter that may change. Okay, if you notice, instead of flights, if I hit on flights, the endpoint is basically flights. If I hit hotels, it's getting changed to hotels. It's homestays. So it's getting changed automatically. So basically, anything that is a variable, we call it as a path parameters. That is part of the resource itself. So we have two things. Okay, one is path parameters, and query parameters. So path parameters are basically it's part of the resource itself, part of the resource, which means these are all mandatory. Okay, you have to provide it, but it is variable. It can change. Okay, it can change it, but it is mandatory field. but query parameters are optional. It entirely based upon the design, how people want to design it. Some people transfer all the information that in Make My Trip case, they've used query parameters to send all the information about the request. But in case of different people, they use different approaches. Okay, but mostly get calls, all the information will be constructed in the form of query parameters. Okay, query parameters are optional, so they can be one or many. If there are many, they are all separated by ampersand symbols. Okay, they are basically key value pairs. So the key is itinerary, the value is Delhi to MAA, and the date. So this is your key, this is the value, key value. There are multiple key values. So whenever you create it like this, it's all basically your query parameters. If you want to add more, you can also add more here. So let's say foo bar. So it will get appended at the end of the, okay. So the order doesn't matter. Okay, at the end of the day, even if you switch these orders in between, that doesn't matter. So at the end of the day, you need to transfer all this information. So there is a chat. Can we have numbers in query params? Yes, you can also have. We are going to see about that. You can also have numbers. Okay, it is also possible. We are going to deal about that. Don't worry. We'll have numbers definitely in the query params. Okay, we'll do that. So we have understood what is path parameters now. Path parameters, for example, this is a path parameter. It is mandatory one, okay, but it is changing. So flight, homestays, train, based upon that, it is getting changed. This is also part of a path parameter. But anything that is after the query symbol, this is your question mark symbol, is a query parameter. Okay, key equal to value. Okay, then and query equal to value. Okay, good. So this is your query and path parameters. So I have some summary here. I will also go to that and explain. So query parameters are used to sort or filter the resources. Okay, we have a lot of information. Okay, there are a lot of flight details. I want to filter out. I want to sort them out. So then I use a query parameter. I want to filter those resources. Okay, based on my requirements. So I'm going to use a query parameters. That's what Make My Trip have done there. Path parameters are basically to identify specific resource. That's what it has also done. It's going to identify a specific resource. Only deals about holidays in India. Only deals about hotel bookings in Make My Trip. Okay. So query parameters is optional, but the path parameters is mandatory. Query parameters appears after the question mark symbol. If there are multiple query params, then they are all separated by and symbol. Okay. So that's about query and path parameters. We're going to learn about that more in detail. But for now, that's okay, guys. We'll get started with new request. Again, this is a Make My Trip request. Maybe I can name this request as get flight detail, something like this. And then I'll save it. Okay, now once you save this, this becomes part of this particular collection. Then you can close it. Okay. Now, I want to create one more request. Maybe that's from different to different. This is from Delhi to Chennai. I want to create something else. Then you can also, go here and add a new request and then construct a new request, give its name, get some information or post it or whatever. So you can basically use this to play around. Okay, if you want to delete it, you can also delete it. I don't want to see this request. So okay, this collection is okay. I want to create a new collection. I don't want to deal about this anymore. So let's remove this. Now I want to create a new collection because we need a different API. Okay, so let me name it as request collection. Request means request response collection. This is a dummy server that they have deployed for us to play around with REST APIs. Okay, so this is the name of the collection I want to give. Let's close it. So now this doesn't have any request. I can also click on here to create a request. Get users. Okay, this is a new one that I'll explain now. Okay, this is the name I want to give. Let's go to rest.in. Okay, now guys, previously we used server as Google. We used server as Google. We used server as Make My Trip. Okay, we used Google. We used Make My Trip as a server. We also used Amazon as a server. But now for our practice, we need something that is very reliable, which has exposed their APIs. Okay, so what we are doing, we're going to use request. So request, we're going to play around with it. So basically request response. What they have done is, this is a server. Okay, they have created for our usage. If you want to play around with the APIs, you want to learn about REST APIs, They have created this server and hosted in some particular bare metal server and given the access endpoints for us to play around with it. So if you notice, we go down, they have given a lot of documentation here. You want to practice get method, use this call. If you want to also practice get method, you can also use this. If you want to practice post method, you can try to use this. Okay. If you want to practice put, try to use this. Want to practice patch, delete, you can use any of these for your practices. That's what they are telling. Okay, let's try to go one by one. I want to fetch all the information. Okay, so if you notice, this is the base URL. This is my base URL. Let's go and paste it here. This is the base URL. What is the other part of the URL? So other part of the URL is basically here. Okay, let's not deal about the query parameters for now. Let's just tell API/users. Okay, and then let's hit on send. So this basically gives me a response back. Okay, it means it has some users. Okay, some ID, email, first name, last name, avatar, some developers information in an array. Okay, so it has a data array. In each index, it has details about its developers. Okay, good. And it also have displaying me the details from the first page. There are 6 details about the developers. Okay, ID is 6. Yeah, we have 6 details. And also notice there is total of 2 details, which means there is total of 2 pages. So if you want to get the second page, then in those cases, you can also do page equal to 2. Guys, somebody asks, can the query parameter be number? Yeah, here it is a number. Let's try to do. So if you notice this time, this is displaying the content from the page 2 from ID 7 to 12. Okay, so you can also use query parameters with numbers. That is also possible. Guys, I have seen the documentation. You cannot directly use anything that you want. Okay, they have to do some implementation in the server part, so that you can use page as a query key and the value as a number. If they have only implemented, then only you can use it. In our case, this Recrus developers have done that. So they have given the detail also. You can use something like users (page equal to 2. Then only you can use it. Otherwise, you cannot directly use a query parameter. If you use something like, let's say I want to fetch email equal to this. Okay, let's try to use it. Email equal to this. See, it is of no use because it is basically returning you all the 1 to 6, which means it's almost same like it is same request like this. Okay, it's same request like this. So sometimes you can send, but it will be ignored because they haven't developed anything for that. Okay, so that will be ignored. Good. So for now, let's focus on the headers part. Okay, while constructing the headers, maybe this still telling accept is anything I can accept, the same thing. So the Postman is basically using the same auto generator headers for all the requests. That's okay. If you want to add more, we can add more. We'll see about the headers later. Response headers, again, if you notice, this time the content type is application JSON. Previously it is HTML. This time this is JSON. Again, this server also returning date, and then it's also returning some other extra information. Here, if you notice, previously content encoding is gzip, but this server is returning information in the form of BR encoding. Okay, so this is some small differences, but apart from that, there is not much of big difference. Okay, good. The response code, the response time, and the response size, and then the response body. This time we received a response body. Okay, good guys. Now this is one of the requests. Now I want to play around with some other requests. Let's click on save here. Okay, once you click on save, it will be saved. Now I am trying to create a new add request. We'll use single user. We want to fetch an information from a single user. Okay, then we will use API/users, and then so we'll copy this. We'll paste it here. So this will give you all the users, but I want to fetch the information about the first user alone. Now it is giving me only the information about the first user. So this is basically your path parameter. Okay, here. So I can make it changing. So if I make it 2, it will give me detail about 2. If you make it 5, it will give me detail about 5. If I make it 15, it is giving me an empty response because there is only total of 12 entries in this particular dummy server. The server is having only details about 12, So we have to use from 1 to 12. So that's the only difference. So let's say this. Again, guys, if you notice one thing, okay, there is some chat. So the ID equal to 1 means first user. Yes. So ID is basically, so how many of you know about SQL? So in SQL databases, what do you know? We have a primary column, right? So that's your unique column. In this case, the ID is a unique column. So it's a primary key, okay, in that particular table. So that you can basically fetch the information using the key. So here, instead of using like this, okay, I can also use question mark ID equal to 1. So it's basically fetching me. So ID is a primary key so that you can use a path parameter or query parameter. Okay. So they have provided the implementation here. Can we have many path parameters? Yeah. See, if you notice this API today, in case of make my trip, if you notice what we have flight. Tomorrow it has changed to something else. Okay. The same way in the same URL itself, you can have multiple path parameters that are changing. Okay. Though I cannot give you an explanation with a sample now, maybe I will think about it tomorrow and then give you one example. But for now, understand in make my trip, this are path parameters because these may get changed because this is flight. It can be changed to a train, hotel, or something. The search can be changed to book. For booking tickets, we may be changing to book. So this is getting changed. So it's a variable, but it is part of the resource. So we call it as path parameters. So these are all multiple path parameters. Okay. Good. So let's go back. And if you notice, this is a path parameters, right? Previously, when we are using query parameters, okay, it is actually constructing all these things in a key value pair. Okay. The Postman is having good UI for that. But in case of path parameters, it's not giving me any options. In those cases, what you can do, basically you can add the colon symbol and then give something. Okay, maybe I can just give ID here. Okay, this now becomes a variable. Okay, let's go to the parameters tab. And now if you notice, previously we have only query parameters. We have path parameters now. This is a variable now. You can give the value here. So now your thing is more organized, right? Instead of staying at 1, 2, 3 here, now we have organized this in a better way using variables. Okay. Now we can just change here. Okay, 5. It looks more readable. Okay, that's a good advantage of using path parameters. And now we have a use case that we want to generate some numbers randomly. So your intention is just to check this API. Okay, I want to validate whether I hit this request. Every time it needs to send an ID with a different value. Okay, interesting use case. How can we do this? Postman has also the option for this. You don't have to go and change this manually every time. Add double braces and then type random integer. I think it should work. Okay, let's try to hit it. Okay, it's not bringing me the answer. Okay, I want to debug what happened. I don't know. It's returning me 404 not found. There is some problem. Okay, I want to understand what is happening. So click on the console here. Console is a place where you can debug. So there is a lot of information. Let's clear all of them and again send it. So it is telling, okay, it's constructing a request that nobody understands. So whatever the thing that I have entered here is not working. Okay, I don't know. It's not giving me the auto suggestion. Basically, there is a problem with the Postman client. What I can do, I can go to the body. I can give JSON here. So now here it is saying the suggestion. Okay, random. It is random int. Okay, so I need to just copy it and then I'll remove it. You don't need this anymore. Go to parameters. Place that here. Now this dollar symbol I have missed. So if you add this dollar symbol, what it do? It generates a random integer. Okay, let's try to send the request now. If you notice, it will generate. It's a function in Postman that it generates a random integer between 1 to 1000. Okay, here now the test is not again failed because this is the request sent. It is generating 522 as the random integer. But in our case, we need to generate from 1 to 12. Then how can we do this? Okay, if you have the intention to generate from 1 to 10, 1 to 1000, then you can directly use this. But in other cases, okay, we have to write some code ourselves. Okay, we will do that. Okay, so for that we need to understand about something called as prerequisite script. Okay, so prerequisite script is something that is executed before every request. Okay, after executing this, whatever you have here, then only it will go and send this request. Suppose for example, I will put a console.log. Okay, which means it's like a system.out.println in Java, printf in C. Okay, so I want to print something. Okay, checking something like this. I'll clear all the logs and then I'll click on send. Now, if you notice, first the checking is printed, which means this is executed first before executing this. Okay, whatever request you are sending, before that it will be executed. I see one more chat. This is like, yes, before test, not a before test, it's like before method. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, exactly. This is executed before every request. Okay, before this particular request. Okay, this prerequisite script tab is for this request. Before executing this request, it will be executed. Good. Now what I can do, basically, this Postman is having a lot of node modules, inbuilt node modules. For those who are not from JavaScript backgrounds and from Java backgrounds, it's like Java Maven dependencies. In Java, we call it as Maven dependencies, right? It has inbuilt dependencies. Okay, you can leverage those to. Okay, one such node module is your Ladash. Ladash is an inbuilt node modules, but you don't have to know about all these things. But directly, what you can do, you can generate this. Okay, how we can generate this? Underscore dot random. Okay, and then add it. Now I want to generate a number between 1 to 12. I can generate like this. Then what I'm doing, I'm telling console.log and then yeah. Okay, let's try to see what's happening. You don't have to end with semicolon all the time. So try to send this. Now, if you notice, this has generated 7 as the A value, and now I need to some way. So it's generating, but we need to pass this. We need to pass this to the path parameters. So here we are still using the random integer that we developed. So we cannot use the function directly here. So I need to find a way that I need to transfer this A information to this particular value here, so that it will generate a value between 1 to 12 and then it will feed it here. So for that, we have something called as variables. Okay, we have query params, path variables, path parameters, but we also have something called as collection level variables. Okay, if you click on this particular guy, okay, maybe I'll give you another example on easily how we can understand this. Okay, okay, let's think about, you have different environments, and then you have a lot of, let's name it as first to get user. Okay, you have a lot of environments. Let's assume you have 100 requests here. Okay, today this is production environment. Okay, this is now constant. Tomorrow you want to test it in test environment or dev environment. In those cases, you need to come here and then change it the URL like this. This is very difficult. If you have 100 requests, you cannot go and change 100 requests manually. That's very time confusing, consuming task. So we cannot do that. So what I'm going to do, if you select this, you will be given an option to set this as a variable. I don't know why it is not showing, but it will definitely show. Otherwise, you can directly click on this collection. Okay, go to the variable section here and then add a variable here. URL. I'll come to what is initial value and current value later, but for now, just give the URL. So my URL is this. Okay, not entirely, but I just want to give until here. Okay, now save this information. Now here, instead of this, you can basically write double braces, and then enter URL. Okay. Now, if you hover your mouse over this, it is now understanding, hey, this is a C. C indicates, guys, if you notice, there is a C that is coming. That is collection variable. This is a collection variable. The initial value is this request.in. Current value is also request.in. The scope of this variable is within this collection. Okay. Suppose if I send this request, it still works. Okay. If you go to the console, it still uses, it replaces that variable with request.in. Okay. That's good now. But what is the problem? Okay. You cannot use this collection variable to in this particular collection. Suppose if I go here, and then if I try to use this in this particular collection, it won't work. Okay. If I try to replace this, okay, now see, it is telling unresolved variable. I cannot find this variable where it is located, so you cannot do this. Okay. So this particular collection variable is only applicable within the collection. Okay. That's a very important thing. If you want something that is needs to be globally accessed, okay, in all the collections, then we have something called as global variable. Okay. You can go here. So you can click on add here. This is a global variable. So now you can add. Okay. Let's say I want to add name equal to name. So something. So now if you use anywhere name, then it will be accessed anywhere. Suppose I go here. So let's create something like, okay, so I'll give something like, now if you hover your mouse, so it's telling it's not recognized because I haven't saved this. Let's see, guys, if you see a orange color symbol, it means it's not saved. Click on save here or press Ctrl and S. Once you save this, come back here. Now if you hover your mouse, it is telling G. G means it's global level. You can access it anywhere. Okay. So now this ID will be whatever you have given there. Okay. Now I go here and I change this to 2. Okay. Save it. Come here. Click on send request. So now it's sitting the request. So basically this is a global variable, and you can also use a collection variable. So we have understood about two variables. There is also one more variable that is called as environment variable. This is for managing the environment, guys. Actually, we shouldn't have created a collection level variable for the URL. We should have created environment variable. Why? Okay. Now tomorrow you want to change this value. Okay. I want to test this in another environment. So what in case of collection variable, what you have to do? You have to go here, create this is test URL, because this is for test environment. The URL value is something like this. Test-request.in, something like this. Okay. Now still then you have to go here and then change this to test URL, something like this. Okay. So you have to go and change it in all the places. So again, collection variable is not a better candidate here. Then what we can do is basically we can create it as a, so I'll go here, I'll remove all this. We don't need this at the collection level. I need them at the environment level. If you notice, go here to this environment and click on plus symbol, new environment. This is my prod environment. I will create one more environment. This is my dev environment. I'll create one more environment. This is my test environment. Okay, like this I can create. In the prod environment, I will create a variable called as this https request.in. Okay, this is my initial value and final. I'll come to what is initial value and current value later. But for now, just understand I have created a new environment that is prod, and then I have created this variable. In the test environment also, I'll create the same variable URL, but here I use this is a test environment, right? So test iPhone. So you can create like this. In the dev environment, again I will create a URL, but here I will use dev. Okay, good. So now we have created all these environments. Let's close all these things. First, close all the tabs. Close all tabs. Now I'll go to the collections again. Let's go here. Now the thing is, I will remove this. I'll enter the curly braces again. In the center, I'll type URL. Save this. Now, if you notice, it is still telling, hey, unresolved variable. But if you notice, we have created an environment variable called URL. but you need to change it here. Okay, you need to choose the environment where you want to run it. So I want to run it in prod environment. Now, if you hover your mouse, it is telling request.in. Tomorrow, you want to test it in dev environment. Just go here, change this to test, and then come here. This URL will be automatically changed. So suppose you are testing in dev phase. After completing the dev phase, you want to test it in the test environment. What do? You just go and change it here. You don't have to go and change in individual places. This is the beauty about using an environment variable. Okay, now let's click on send, because this won't work because this is not a valid URL. So I'll just change it to prod and I send it. Now this is again working. So this is how we can play around with variables. So there are three variables that we need to understand. One is environment variable. Second one is collection variable. Third one is global variable. Does anyone wants to give a summary on what is this? What is the use of environment variable? Anyone? Guys, I want some answers, please.
Environment as in like you told development, QA or prod. So
Yeah. So it is used to manage different environments. Okay. Environments. Okay. Good. What is a collection variable?
yeah, collection is like the package, the folder you have made. So it will be applicable to like further requests.
Yeah.
So
For
on a
all the
whole,
requests within the
yeah.
collection itself. Yeah. So so we can tell the scope of this variable is within the collection. Okay. It cannot be accessed outside of it. Okay. The global one, scope of this is entire workspace, entire Postman workspace. Okay, you can access that variable anywhere. So try to use a collection variable if there is no intention of you to share it with others. Okay, other collections. Okay, so lesser the scope, the better. Okay, so try to keep it in the collection variable as much as possible. If there is a specific need, then only go to global variable. Don't simply put it in global variable so that everyone else will get confused. Okay, so that's a very important thing. And environment variables are used to manage different environments. That's very cool stuff. And I haven't told what is initial and current values, right? So this is confusing all the times. Okay, let's go here. Do we have anything local variable? Yeah, Vaiti, we have something like that. We'll come to that later. Don't worry. I'm going step by step. It's okay. I don't want to confuse you guys. So we'll go step by step. Don't worry. There is something called as initial value and current value. Okay. What is this? Okay, I have some password like this. Okay, but my password, this is my system password or desktop password, something like that. I can have any password, right? I can also have my girlfriend name who is sitting next to me. Okay, so if I give my password name here, like okay, let's take a girl name. Okay, it's a girl name. If there are more than workspaces, can global variables be accessed across workspaces? No, you cannot. Okay, it's restricted to the workspace. Okay, so I have my my crush name here, okay, as a password. Okay, suppose I want to share this variable. Okay, then I have to click on this. Okay, I have to click on this and then create export. Okay, and then I want to export it as a JSON file. Okay, I want to send this and then export. Okay, I want to export this. Just a minute, guys. Okay, so I'm just trying to export this. Okay, as a JSON, I want to share it with them. Okay, let's go here and see what is there. Okay, let's go to the desktop and open it in Notepad++. So if you notice, this has exported all the collection for me. Okay, this is request. I have exported the collection itself. So if you notice, there will be something called as variables. The key is password and the value is girl name. So which means, so it is actually exporting your, suppose let's say your crush name itself is there. You are sharing with her, then it is a problem, right? So you don't want to do that. So you may be very specific, you don't want to share this password. Then while sharing, okay, always keep this as empty, or you can give some random values XYZ. Okay, whatever the thing that you have in the initial value will be shared when you are exporting. whatever in the current value will not be shared. Okay. So it's up to you. So if you hover your mouse over this value is shared with your team when you share the variable in a collection or your environment or your global variables. So this will be, if you want to share it with someone, this will be shared. So make sure that you remove all the important information before sharing it with anyone. So the current value, you can keep your value. This is what will be used in your code. Okay. So this is the thing that will be very important. The initial value is just for sharing purpose. You hide or shield the information before sharing with people. Okay, good. Now we have got the enough understanding about the collection. It is case sensitive. Yeah, it is case sensitive. You have to be very specific about the cases. Okay. So now we have created the collection. Okay. Now what I want to do, so it's not that you so now we have understood about the collection. So in the prerequisite script, okay, previously we generated some random values. Now we want to generate some random values. So I'll use the Ladash library again. So let's create a variable a equal to underscore dot random. This is the method, and give the value between what you want to generate. Now you can basically, you have created this variable. Now I want to set this as a collection variable so that I can use it there. So I don't know how to do that. I don't know the code. Just go through the snippets here. Okay, set a collection variable. That's it, guys. So now what is the key? I want to give key as a random integer. What is the value? The value is basically a. Okay, because that's what we have created here. Or you can directly give this call itself here. So it's not the, so there are two ways to set the variable. Okay, two ways to set a variable. One, you go to that scope and create manually, or create using code snippets. Here we have already learned about how to create them manually, but we are also going to create them using code snippets. So I am trying to create a collection variable that is only applicable to this request collection. At the runtime, the key is going to be this and the value is this. Okay, let's try to save this. Okay, and in the parameters, okay, previously we will give an ID. Okay, ID is this, and the value is now random int. Okay, random int. So if you not guys notice, this is okay. Maybe I'll use a different name. Okay, this is, let's say, just int. This is enough. Okay, I will just tell. So first, what will happen? It will come to the prescript. It will create a collection variable, and then it will go to the parameters. In the parameters, it'll identify ID as this, and then it will get the value from the collection variable, and it will construct the request, and then it will send it. Let's try to send it. So if you notice, it generated a value 9. Okay, let's clear all the console. It's noisy. Let's do it once again. So it basically created a collection variable that is between 1 to 12. So we go to the collection level. If you notice, previously we don't have any value. Now it created a value variable called int with the value of 7. Next time I run it, okay, next time I run it, it generated a 6. So the request is also sending 6. Okay, so this is how we can use some inbuilt libraries to generate some random integers, and then we can also use collection level variables to store some values and get them at the runtime using this double braces. If you hover your mouse, it will tell you the initial value, current value, and the scope of this is collection level. So basically you can leverage the collections, variables, prerequisite scripts, and do all these things. Again, guys, there is something you can also play around with the Ladash library. This random method has different things. Okay, so if you give just this, okay, then it will generate between numbers from 1 to 12. Okay, you can also write something like 12 comma true, which means it will generate a number between 0 to 12, but in decimal number, but a decimal number. Okay, let's, maybe I can keep it as int 1 into. Okay, let's try to hit the request. Now if I go to the request collection here, it has int 1 is basically 10. It will generate a number from 1 to 12, sorry, 0 to 12. Int 2 is basically a 1 to 12, 0 to 12 with a decimal place. Okay, so whenever you want to generate numbers like this, you can use this Ladash libraries and then generate these random numbers. This Ladash load module is inbuilt in the Postman itself. Again, guys, we have covered a lot of stuff today. One is variables, one is headers, one is query parameters, one is path parameters, how we can generate random values, how we can use them in our code. We have seen all about that. Tomorrow we will learn about test cases, how to write test cases, how to validate whether the 200 is here, whether the time is less than something. All these things we will do that tomorrow. If you have any doubts before we close for the day, you can ask me now. Otherwise, we'll continue tomorrow. Yes, in real time, this random integer generation will be used. Okay, if the intention, see, Postman itself has created something for us. Okay, random integer, but that will generate from 0 to 1000. But in our case, we need from 1 to 12. That's why we use something like this. Otherwise, you have used directly that. This will be really useful. Sometimes you want to generate a random date, random number, all these things, random strings. Okay, this guy is having a lot of options. Okay, if you go to the raw type JSON, okay, if I go construct something, okay, let's say it's key, just put double brace, close it with double brace. Okay, now if you go and press control and space, it should give you random, all these things, random. If you type random name, random alphanumeric, random avatar image, random bank account number, random Bitcoin, random Boolean. So all these things are for you to use. Random country, you want to generate a random country, can also use all these things. These are all coming from Postman guys itself has given us. They used some external libraries they have generated for us. They have used actually faker library in JavaScript and then generated all these things and given us a command. Okay, you want to generate a random full name, you can use this. Okay, so basically you can use like this. Okay, which, let's see, what are the other use of Ladash library? You can search it. Okay, I can give you a spoon of what you want to. I can just give you a taste of how you can use the Postman and Ladash effectively. Maybe if you want to explore more, you can go ahead and explore it. Okay, you can just Google Ladash with Postman, you get some articles, you learn about it. But yeah, this is what the maximum. It's just a random library, help you to generate some random variables. Apart from that, there are a lot of other, Postman has Choi for assertions. Okay, they also have faker libraries built. They have tiny validator library for doing schema validation. They have a lot of inbuilt libraries. Maybe you can refer them later. Yeah, guys, I'm trying to give you all the knowledge. Okay, whatever I know. Okay, there are knowledge that is beyond my scope also. If you have a requirement, you can learn it. You can always go ahead, Google it and learn it. Okay, if you Google how to generate a random value in Postman, you will get hundreds of articles. One of them will definitely explain you about Ladash and then how to generate it. Okay, so get the basics right. What is collection? What is how to use collection? Which collection I need to use? What is the scope of the collection? Okay, all these things you need the basics. That's what I'm giving you. Okay. Other knowledge you can learn it on the fly. Okay, that's up to you. Any other doubts before we wrap? Okay, no problem, Shailesh. Otherwise, sorry guys, I have consumed 18 more extra minutes, but I request you guys please to join before 7 so that we start the session at 7 and then close it by 8. Okay, please join 5 minutes before to the session. Okay, that's very important because I cannot keep starting at 7:05, 7:06. Okay, we are also making 6 or 7 people who are joining before the time, and then you are also wasting their time. So please join before 5 minutes so that we start the session exactly by 7. Okay, thank you guys for understanding. You all have a very good day today. We'll connect tomorrow. Rohit, resource is something that the information that we are requiring. Okay, whatever information that we need, we call it as a resource in the API world. We call it as a resource. Okay, we want flight information, we call it as a flight resource. Okay, so this just a resource is basically a convenient word to be used in the API world. Okay, that's it. Okay, thanks. Okay, you guys have a very good day. We'll see tomorrow again, and tomorrow session is very important, guys. We're going to learn about how to create test cases. Don't miss it. Okay, please join the session on the time. Thank you guys. Bye.